Hey Mina, just doing you a quick instructional video on how to work with gold leaf. I've been experimenting a little bit with gold leafing on silk, which is where I think you'll end up using it because it's pretty awesome. So when you pick up gold leaf, you can usually get imitation stuff at most arts and crafts stores. They usually have it in the calligraphy section. But basically what you get is you'll either end up with a little book like this or a little box filled with leaf in between sheets of wax paper. Now it's pretty delicate stuff, so working with it is a little bit tricky. I'm a little bit gung-ho with it. Lots of instructions will actually say that what you want to do is wear gloves when you work with it because it can stick to the moisture in your hands. I have really dry hands, so it doesn't. But what you generally get is very, very fine gold. Now the issue with this is it's really fragile. It's almost like super thin aluminium foil. So what you want to probably start with is cutting it into workable pieces, unless you're doing a really large area, in which case you're going to use multiple sheets. You want to cut it down into something a bit smaller, and that in itself can be tricky. So the first thing you want to do is get some scissors that are really clean. If you have scissors that you use on anything sticky, what it'll do is it'll rip the leaf when you try to cut through. It won't actually cut. And the second piece of advice that I would give is when you actually take it out of the book, either use one, or even if you're feeling really really hardcore about it, take 2 leaves out of the sheet of the paper and actually cut your leaf through the paper. That way, hopefully it doesn't stick, and then if I'm doing a little rectangle here, what happens is it comes out right the shape you want the first time. This piece was already a little bit ripped, I think, from when I picked it up before, but that's generally what you want. You can also cut without the paper, but you just have to be very careful. So if I take this away, see how it moves so easily. So you have to be really careful because it's very delicate and it sticks to pretty much anything. So there you have it. Now I've been working on lettering. So if we get rid of this, I have some I prepared earlier just for such an occasion, and it also flies away. So what I've done is I've started by doing my line work, because what I'm about to use, which is, you can get just a normal leafing size wherever you can get gold leaf. I assume you can get this stuff as well. And I did some experiments. It actually flows through the silk a little slower than normal silk dye or silk paint, but it still does. So you still have to put your line work down before you do any of the sizing. But basically paint it in as you would. Be a little bit generous, because this is what's going to make the gold leaf stick. So if we fill in our object, you want it to look fairly wet, but obviously not go over the lines. Anywhere you put this, the gold leaf will stick to it. Now the instructions on the size say that what you want to do is leave it for about 45 minutes on the piece that you have coated. But I've found with fabric, because it tends to suck it in and it tends to dry up, and then the gold leaf doesn't want to stick as easily, because those instructions are really more for if you're gold leafing frames or three-dimensional solid objects. I usually leave this for just maybe a couple of minutes. So I'll leave that bit there and come back when it's sort of ready. Okay, so it's been about 5 minutes, so that's what we come up with. It's fully coated, and you can still notice there's probably a lot of moisture still left in it, but that's fine because that'll at this stage help it stick to the silk. So we grab our gold leaf that we prepared earlier, and basically you just want to start laying it over the top, waiting for it to stick. If you grab a sable hair brush, just lightly pat it down as you go to make sure that it's sticking. And you'll see it straight away. What it does is it sucks in. So if I lay this next bit very carefully, what happens is you'll see exactly where it's sticking through the piece. So if you gently lay it down, and you can even just blow on it lightly, and you can almost see here, you should be able to see where it's pulled into the piece, where it's moist, and all these bits to the side that aren't stuck down. And you will end up with some wastage, obviously, because you're cutting into vaguely the shape you want, and anything that doesn't end up sticking is going to be wasted. But sometimes it comes off in big enough pieces that you can always, use it later on for if you ever do illumination or something for just little tiny bits. So it's up to you how thrifty you want to be. If you want to save it or if you just want to chuck it, that's fine too. Generally it's good to keep a bigger brush on hand as well to give it a nice big pat down. Make sure that there's plenty of gold leaf. If the leaf does split on the piece, that's fine. It should still be sticky underneath that, and you can basically put another piece over the top and pat it down. Sometimes you can get a little bit overzealous and pull the gold leaf apart almost while you're trying to adhere it, but that's why it's better to pat straight down rather than try and pull it down and across and smooth. Now, at this stage, because we want to do both sides, what I've been doing is to pick the piece up, turn it over. As you can see on the back side, some of that size has gone through, so it's moist on the back side as well, which is excellent. But what we'll do, just to be really sure that we get a good coverage on both sides, is we then add onto the back. Just fill in the lines that we made. And the good thing about doing this straight away as well is occasionally your size will dry up. As I said before, the fabric seems to just suck it in. It dries up. And the gold leaf on the front side doesn't quite stick, but if you're doing this, you're actually patting it down gently from the opposite side, and then adding that little bit more size ensures that your front side is actually adhering just as nicely. Now at this stage with the back, you can either leave this for that 5 minutes again, or I'm pretty sure most of the time I've been just grabbing and going at this stage without actually waiting for the size to be ready. Now you can see my hands were wet, so now that I've picked up the gold leaf, I've got golden fingers. So once again, just lay it gently over the top and then gently pat it down. If you're worried about the leaf sticking to your hands and you don't want to wear gloves, the other thing that you can do is take one of your sable brushes and lightly moisten it. Make sure it's not too wet. And basically you can actually use that to pick up your leaf. So of course it's not going to work for me now. There you go. So instead of trying to fumble around with your fingers, if you're worried about it, you can do it this way. So you lay it gently, and we'll put one more bit onto there. I fibbed, maybe two. Okay. So now that that's all down, we take our big sable brush again, lightly pat it all down to make sure that it's all stuck on. So you can see how generous you want to be. That's just purely because you don't want to spend I don't want to spend so much time cutting exactly the right shape and putting it down. In the end, it will look right. It looks a bit messy now, but when we pull it all off, it should look really good. Now the other thing that I've been doing, just to ensure that it's going to dry nice and safe, is I'll put something weighty on top of it. leave that for about half an hour, and then what I'll do is take that away and I'll actually hang it up to dry probably overnight before I take the excess leaf off. So I'll do that with this, and then I'll come back tomorrow and show you how that's done as well. Okay, so final thing, I've actually left it for a couple of days. So at this point we take our sable brush and gently go over it. It's not wanting to come away. So what we can do is take a slightly stiffer brush and work at the edges if it doesn't come away, just so you basically scrub it back. Then there you have it. So you can turn that over and do the other side. That's the complete wrong end of the brush, but sort of get the impression. And there you go. Two sides, gold leafed, absolutely gorgeous. And after that, you should be able to stretch up the silk normally and then dye everything else around it. So I hope that's helpful. Enjoy. Bye.